The unexpected encounter. The Valiant's emergency thrusters sputtered pathetically as Captain Fiona Reed fought with the manual controls. Her knuckles whitened against the joystick, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cooling systems working overtime. "Come on, you overpriced bucket of bolts," she muttered, eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching surface of Xanthoria. The uncharted planet's swirling violet atmosphere crackled with electrical disturbances that had fried half her ship's systems. Fiona had been mapping the outer reaches of the Cygnus arm when the gravitational anomaly had pulled her off course. Now, as her scout vessel bucked and trembled, she cursed the Stellar Exploration Division and their calculated risks. The altimeter spun downward. 3,000 meters. 2,000. The dense forests of alien vegetation grew more defined, massive trees with luminescent blue foliage that might have been beautiful under different circumstances. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Captain Fiona Reed of the SED Valiant. Crash landing on uncharted world. Coordinates." She barked into the comms unit, knowing the transmission would likely never reach human space. 800 meters. The ship's hull groaned under the strain. Fiona took a deep breath and deployed the emergency landing protocols. The remaining engine gave one final, valiant push before dying completely. The sudden silence was almost as terrifying as the screaming alarms that had preceded it. 400 meters. 300. The ship was dropping too fast. "This is going to hurt," she whispered, bracing herself against the pilot's chair. Impact. The world became chaos, metal tearing, equipment flying, pain shooting through her body as the restraints dug into her shoulders. The Valiant skidded across the alien landscape, carving a deep trench through the strange blue vegetation before finally coming to rest against a massive rock formation. When the dust settled, Fiona hung limply in her harness, blood trickling from a cut above her eyebrow. She took a mental inventory: bruised ribs, possible concussion, nothing immediately fatal. The emergency lights bathed the cockpit in an eerie red glow. "Could have been worse," she grunted, releasing her harness. Fiona methodically checked what systems remained operational. Life support was functioning on backup power, but communications were dead. The ship's sensors still worked, showing breathable atmosphere outside, albeit with higher oxygen content than Earth standard. She retrieved her expedition suit from the storage locker, a sleek, form-fitting ensemble of synthetic fibers designed to adapt to various planetary conditions. The armor plating was minimal but sufficient for exploration purposes. She grabbed her survey kit, emergency rations, and pulse pistol before approaching the manual exit hatch. "Here goes nothing," Fiona muttered, pushing the lever. The hatch swung open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The air that rushed in carried strange, sweet scents, alien flora and something else, something reminiscent of cinnamon and ozone. Fiona stepped onto Xanthorian soil, her boots sinking slightly into the spongy ground. The landscape was breathtaking. Massive trees with translucent blue leaves towered overhead, their trunks spiraling in impossible geometric patterns. The undergrowth pulsed with bioluminescence, casting everything in a dreamlike azure glow. Twin moons hung in the darkening sky, one violet, one gold. Fiona's survey equipment immediately began analyzing soil samples and atmospheric composition. She needed shelter, resources, and a way to boost her distress signal. According to her calculations, it would take at least 3 weeks for anyone to realize she was missing and another month for a rescue party to reach this sector, assuming they could trace her route. A sound like breaking glass made her spin around, pulse pistol raised. "Well," she breathed, "that's definitely not in the database." Standing before her was a being unlike any she'd encountered in her decade exploring the frontier. Nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent indigo skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The alien's features were striking: angular face with high cheekbones, eyes like liquid gold with vertical pupils, and hair that flowed like liquid silver down to narrow hips. Most notably, the alien was obviously female, with a distinctly humanoid form despite the exotic coloration. She wore what appeared to be ceremonial armor, interlocking plates of a material that resembled mother-of-pearl, leaving her midriff and shoulders exposed. In one hand, she held a staff that hummed with energy. "You are trespassing on sovereign Xanthorian territory," the alien said, her voice melodious but cold. To Fiona's surprise, her words were perfectly understandable, either through some translation technology or a more mysterious means. Fiona lowered her weapon slightly but didn't holster it. "I didn't exactly plan this visit. My ship was damaged entering your atmosphere." The alien's golden eyes narrowed. "Humans have not been permitted in this sector. Your presence violates the boundary proclamation." "Never received that memo," Fiona replied with a wry smile. "Captain Fiona Reed, Stellar Exploration Division. And you are?" The alien drew herself up to her full height, the silver markings on her skin pulsing with light. "I am Queen Vexera, sovereign ruler of the Xanthorian Empire, keeper of the ancestral flame, and protector of the 15 realms." Fiona raised an eyebrow. "Quite a resume." "Look, Your Majesty, I'm just trying to survive here. If you could point me toward the nearest outpost where I could communicate with my people." "Communication will not be necessary," Vexera interrupted. "You will accompany me to the Citadel for questioning. Your presence here is concerning." "With all due respect, I'd rather," Fiona began, but her words were cut short by a deafening thunderclap from above. Both women looked skyward as the violet clouds churned violently. Forks of emerald lightning split the darkening sky, striking the forest around them. One bolt hit a nearby tree, splintering it and sending burning fragments raining down. "Ion storm," Vexera hissed, her composure cracking. "We must seek shelter immediately." "My ship," Fiona gestured back toward the Valiant. "Will be incinerated if the storm reaches full intensity," Vexera cut in. "The caverns beneath the crystal falls offer the only safe refuge. Follow me if you wish to live, human." Fiona hesitated only a moment before falling in behind the alien queen. They raced through the forest as the wind rose to a howl, whipping the luminescent foliage into a frenzy of blue light. The ground trembled beneath their feet as more lightning struck around them. Vexera moved with inhuman grace despite her height, navigating the treacherous terrain effortlessly. Fiona struggled to keep pace, her expedition suit's environmental controls working overtime to manage her body temperature. "There." Vexera pointed toward a waterfall of what appeared to be liquid crystal, flowing over a cliff face that sparkled with embedded gemstones. At the base, partially hidden by the cascade, was the entrance to a cave. They reached the cave just as the storm reached its peak. A bolt of emerald lightning struck directly behind them, the concussive force throwing them both forward into the cavern. Fiona tumbled across smooth stone, coming to rest against a crystalline formation. Vexera rose to her feet first, moving to the cave entrance. With a fluid gesture of her staff, a shimmering energy field materialized across the opening, sealing them inside but allowing them to see the devastation outside. "That should hold against the storm's energy," she said, turning back to Fiona. Fiona pushed herself up, wincing at the new bruises forming. "Impressive tech. Thanks for the save." "Do not mistake necessity for kindness, human," Vexera replied coolly. "The death of an off-worlder on Xanthorian soil creates diplomatic complications." "Good to know I'm valued," Fiona quipped, taking in their surroundings. The cavern was breathtaking, walls embedded with crystals that emitted a soft, pulsating light in various colors. The ceiling rose at least 30 feet above them, adorned with stalactites that seemed to be made of the same crystalline substance as the waterfall. At the back of the cave, a pool of luminescent water cast rippling patterns across the stone. "How long will the storm last?" Fiona asked, setting down her survey kit and running a hand through her short auburn hair. Vexera studied the chaos outside. "The atmospheric disturbance is severe. 3 cycles, perhaps 4. "Cycles? What you would call the days," Vexera clarified with a hint of impatience. "For days." Fiona groaned. "Trapped in a cave with an alien queen who clearly isn't thrilled about my company. Perfect. Your discomfort is irrelevant, Vexra stated, though something like curiosity flickered in her golden eyes. Although I admit, I have not encountered a human female before. The reports described your species as different. Different how? Fiona asked, intrigued despite herself. Less adaptable. Weaker. Vexra's gaze traveled over Fiona's form with scientific detachment. You survived a crash that should have killed you and kept pace during our retreat. Perhaps the intelligence briefings require updating. Happy to defy expectations, Fiona said with a small smile. She removed her expedition jacket, revealing the fitted thermal layer beneath. So, Your Majesty, since we're going to be roommates for a while, might as well get comfortable. Tell me about this boundary proclamation I supposedly violated. Vexra hesitated, then gracefully seated herself on a flat crystalline formation. After the Centauri conflict, your coalition agreed to remain outside the Cygnus boundary. This sector is protected space. The Centauri conflict. Fiona frowned. That was nearly 70 years ago, before my time. And I've never heard of any agreement restricting exploration in this sector. Interesting, Vexra said, her silver hair shifting like liquid as she tilted her head. Either your leaders have deceived you, or... She left the thought unfinished. Outside, the storm raged with increasing intensity, emerald lightning illuminating the alien landscape in staccato flashes. Inside, two representatives of vastly different civilizations regarded each other with cautious curiosity, neither yet realizing that their chance encounter would soon change the course of both their worlds. Forbidden connection. The storm outside intensified, bathing the crystal cave in flashes of emerald light. Captain Fiona Reed sat cross-legged near the luminescent pool, taking inventory of her survival gear. Queen Vexra remained by the energy barrier, her indigo skin reflecting the pulsating colors of the crystals around them. Your technology, Vexra finally broke the silence, gesturing to Fiona's portable scanner. It's primitive, yet functional. Fiona glanced up with a half-smile. Thanks for the backhanded compliment, Your Majesty. It was merely an observation, Vexra replied, moving closer with fluid grace. The Xanthorian Empire achieved quantum integration 3 millennia ago. Show off, Fiona muttered, though her eyes betrayed genuine interest. If you're so advanced, why haven't we encountered your people during our explorations? Vexra seated herself on a crystalline formation, her silver hair cascading like liquid metal over her shoulders. We choose isolation. Other species tend to be disruptive. Says the 7-foot-tall alien queen with glowing skin, Fiona countered. From where I'm sitting, you're the exotic one. Something unexpected happened then, Vexra's lips curved upward in what appeared to be amusement. Perspective is indeed relative, Captain Reed. As the first day of their confinement progressed, the initial tension between them gradually eased. Fiona shared her emergency rations, protein concentrates and nutrient tablets, while Vexra revealed that the crystalline water was not only safe but contained beneficial minerals. They established a makeshift camp deeper in the cave where the temperature remained constant. These markings, Fiona asked during their first meal, gesturing to the silver patterns that flowed across Vexra's indigo skin. They're beautiful. Are they tattoos? They are bioluminescent pathways, Vexra explained, the patterns brightening slightly at the attention. All Xanthorians possess them, but royal lineages have more complex designs. They reflect our emotional and physical state. Like an external nervous system. A simplified analogy, but not entirely incorrect. Fiona leaned forward, fascinated. So right now, what are they saying? Vexra hesitated, the silver lines pulsing once. That I find your questions unexpectedly stimulating. The human captain blinked, unsure if something had been lost in translation. Stimulating. Intellectually, Vexra clarified quickly, though the patterns on her skin flickered in what might have been embarrassment. By the second day, they had established a rhythm of coexistence. Fiona's scientific curiosity had overcome her caution, and she found herself cataloging the unique properties of the cave's ecosystem. Vexera, despite her initial coldness, revealed herself to be a knowledgeable guide, explaining the crystalline formations and their biological significance to Xanthorian culture. These particular crystals, Vexera explained, touching a cluster of azure structures, are used in our coming-of-age ceremonies. They resonate with our bioluminescent pathways, enhancing perception. Like a psychedelic? Fiona asked, raising an eyebrow. More like a connection to the collective consciousness of our ancestors, Vexera corrected. Though I suppose the neurological effect might appear similar to your hallucinogens. Fiona reached out impulsively, her fingers hovering near the crystal. May I? Vexera seemed surprised by the request but nodded. It will not affect humans the same way, but you may sense something. When Fiona's fingertips brushed the crystal, a warm tingling sensation traveled up her arm. The blue formation brightened, responding to her touch in a way that seemed almost sentient. That's incredible, she whispered. Indeed, Vexera replied, but she wasn't looking at the crystal. Her golden eyes were fixed on Fiona's face, studying her reaction with intense curiosity. That evening, as they sat beside the luminescent pool sharing stories of their respective worlds, the atmosphere between them had transformed. Gone was the imperial hauteur of the alien queen and the defensive wariness of the human explorer. In their place was something more complex, a growing respect tinged with an emotion neither was prepared to name. Your species' determination is remarkable, Vexera admitted as Fiona described humanity's expansion through the stars. Despite your biological fragility and technological limitations, you persist. We're stubborn that way, Fiona grinned. And what about Xanthorians? You said you choose isolation, but why? A civilization as advanced as yours could dominate the galaxy if you wanted. Vexera's expression grew solemn. Dominance is not our aim. We witnessed the schism wars in the Andromeda sector, billions lost over ideological differences. We decided observation was wiser than participation. So you've been watching us all this time? Among others, Vexera confirmed. Your world wars were particularly concerning. We nearly intervened during your nuclear era. And yet here we are, Fiona gestured between them, a human and a Xanthorian, sharing stories in a crystal cave like it's the most natural thing in the universe. Natural. Vexera repeated, the word seeming to hold special significance. The silver markings on her skin began to pulse with increased intensity. There is something I must confess, Captain Reed. Fiona, she corrected automatically. After 2 days in a cave, I think we're past titles. Fiona, Vexera acknowledged, the human name sounding musical in her voice. The reason your presence here is so problematic goes beyond diplomatic concerns. Fiona straightened, suddenly alert. I'm listening. Xanthorians possess a unique biological capability, we can form temporary physiological compatibility with other sentient species. Temporary compatibility? Fiona repeated, not quite understanding. Vexera's markings pulsed more rapidly. It is an evolutionary adaptation from our pre-spacefaring days, when different Xanthorian subspecies needed to communicate and cooperate. When in prolonged proximity to another sentient being, our biology begins to harmonize with theirs. Understanding dawned slowly on Fiona's face. Are you saying you're adapting to me? Physically? Yes, Vexera admitted. And it is happening more rapidly than I anticipated. Your biorhythms, your pheromones, my body is responding to them in ways that would be considered. She hesitated, searching for the right word, inappropriate for the sovereign ruler. The implications hung in the air between them. Fiona swallowed hard, suddenly acutely aware of the warmth spreading through her own body, a warmth that had little to do with the cave's temperature. Is that dangerous? She asked, her voice lower than before. Not dangerous, Vexera replied, her golden eyes now fixed on Fiona with unmistakable intensity. But unprecedented between our species. The adaptation is usually temporary, but the depth of compatibility can vary greatly. Fiona stood, needing to move, to process this revelation. And what happens if the compatibility is deep? Vexra rose as well, her imposing height somehow less intimidating than it had been days before. In such cases, the physiological changes can become permanent. And has this happened to you before? With other species? Never, Vexra said softly. I have maintained diplomatic contact with 17 different sentient species. None have triggered this response. The implication was clear, there was something unique about their interaction, something neither science nor diplomacy had prepared them for. The Ancestral Council would consider this a contamination, Vexra continued, her voice tight with conflict. A queen's biological purity is considered essential to her reign. So I'm basically radioactive to your career, Fiona summarized with gallows humor. Great. That is one interpretation, Vexra agreed, a hint of unexpected humor in her tone. Though I find myself increasingly unconcerned with their prehistoric viewpoints. Fiona looked up sharply, caught off guard by the statement. The Xanthorian queen she'd met just days ago would never have spoken so dismissively of her people's traditions. You're changing, Fiona observed. As are you, Vexra countered, gesturing to Fiona's hand. Fiona looked down and gasped. Faint silver lines, barely visible but unmistakably similar to Vexra's markings, had appeared on her wrists, tracing the paths of her veins. That's not possible, she whispered. And yet, it is happening, Vexra replied, stepping closer. The compatibility is bidirectional. Unprecedented, but not unwelcome. The air between them seemed to charge with electricity that had nothing to do with the storm outside. Fiona found herself unable to look away from Vexra's golden eyes, which now held an emotion she could recognize despite the alien features, desire. This is insane, Fiona murmured, even as she moved closer rather than away. I'm a human explorer. You're an alien queen. Perspective is relative, Vexra repeated her earlier words, reaching out to trace the newly formed silver lines on Fiona's wrist. Where their skin touched, both human and Xanthorian markings brightened in perfect synchronicity. The sensation was electric, sending waves of pleasure up Fiona's arm and throughout her body. She gasped, unprepared for the intensity of the connection. The biological harmony is advancing rapidly, Vexra observed, though her scientific tone was belied by the rapid pulsing of her markings and the dilation of her golden pupils. Perhaps we should explore the parameters of this phenomenon. Very scientific approach, Your Majesty, Fiona replied, her voice husky with emotions she couldn't fully identify. Is that what they taught you in royal school? I am merely suggesting, Vexra began, but Fiona cut her off in the most direct way possible. Their first kiss was tentative, exploratory, the meeting of two species who had never imagined such contact possible. Vexra's lips were warmer than human temperature, with a subtle taste like honeyed electricity. The silver markings across both their bodies flared brilliantly, casting the cave in pulsating light that matched the rhythm of their accelerating heartbeats. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily, equal parts shocked and exhilarated by what had transpired. Well, Fiona breathed, I think we just committed some kind of interstellar incident. Indeed, Vexra agreed, the usual formality of her speech pattern disrupted by emotion. And I find myself remarkably unconcerned about the diplomatic ramifications. Outside, the ion storm continued to rage, trapping them in their crystalline sanctuary. But inside, a different kind of storm was brewing, one that would soon reshape the relationship between two vastly different worlds in ways neither human nor Xanthorian had ever anticipated.